Now that we've explored the anatomy of the relevant parts of the kidney, we can talk in more detail about um, exactly how the kidney does these miraculous things that it does. And I'm going to use this analogy, cleaning out a closet. You guys have been home for a while because of the coronavirus thing. So it might be that this is relevant to you. If you've got a closet in your house, maybe not yours, maybe it's your messy sister, right? That looks like this. There are different ways to clean the closet. Now, the goal is to do this. Let me be clear. When I'm talking about a clean closet, I'm talking about your bloodstream. You want your blood to be nice and orderly. You don't want a whole lot of trash in it. You want it to be pristine. And the closet right now, your blood, as it goes into the kidney, well, it's got issues, okay? So we are going to clean the blood. It's like cleaning a closet. So there are a couple ways you could clean this closet. Many people would go in there and they'd look at individual things and they might say, okay, I don't need that anymore. And they throw it on the bed, start a pile to send to the Goodwill, right? Um, uh, and pick up things from the floor and hang things up and pick this up and hang that up and pick that up. And what the heck is that box doing there? Okay, that's one way to do it. That's not the way your kidney works. The way your kidney works is everything's out. Okay. Now, if this was your sister's or your mom's closet and you're taking everything out and putting it in a big pile in the middle of the room, your mom might say, oh, but those are my favorite yellow pants. And those are the cutoff jeans that I wore when I was in high school. Okay. But what you're going to tell her is, Mom, it's okay. We're just taking everything out so that we can decide what we want to put back in. Right? That's the way the human kidney works, the mammalian kidney works. You kind of empty things out. Now, when the blood, when this closet gets emptied out, it's actually not all of your blood going into that glomerular capsule. The things that are going to get left behind will be red blood cells and white blood cells and the larger proteins. But everything that is dissolved in the watery part of the plasma, all of the things that are small molecules, yeah, they're all going into Bowman's capsules. And yes, that means that there's good stuff like lots of water and glucose and amino acids that your body has no interest in throwing away. Yeah, those are going out there at the beginning too. Why don't those things end up in your urine? There should never be glucose in your urine, even though there is as much glucose in this first step of creating urine as there is in your blood. Why is it not in your urine? Because the cells of particularly the proximal convoluted tubule are going to grab the glucose molecules from that stack that's out there on the bed and put it back into the closet. So all the glucoses will go back, all of the amino acids will go back, lactic acid will go back, lots of things will get put back into the closet. And there's a third part, and we'll talk about then when we get there. So let's go back to this diagram of the nephron. Blood is going to go into the glomerulus through this afferent arteriole into the glomerulus or glomerular capillary bed. It comes out through the efferent arteriole. It goes around the peritubular capillaries, and then it'll go there. Great. Now, while it's here in the glomerulus capillary is leakier than a normal capillary, and the pressure inside of it is higher than a normal capillary. So allow me to remind you of the way of what we learned during the cardiovascular system. At the cardiovascular system, we learned that every capillary bed, and peritubular capillaries are a capillary bed, glomerulus is a capillary bed. So every capillary bed, at the beginning of the capillary bed, the hydrostatic pressure pushing water out is stronger than the osmotic pressure asking water not to go. So at the beginning of the capillary bed, water and small molecules that are dissolved in water are going to leave the capillary bed and go splashing across all of the cells. And then at the end of the capillary bed, the hydrostatic pressure has fallen, and the osmotic pressure is just as strong as it was before, so that sucks the water back in at the end of a capillary bed. Right? The exact same concept is going to apply here to our glomerulus. So let's look at it in more detail. The thing that the kidneys have done is you can almost imagine that the kidneys were watching what was going on in the other glomeruluses around the body and going, oh, I think I can use that. Except for what the glomerulus has done is it's taken that whole capillary bed, high hydrostatic pressure here, low hydrostatic pressure here, and it's divided it up into two capillary beds. The first capillary bed with the high hydrostatic pressure is the glomerulus, and then it's gathered up into an efferent arteriole. And the second capillary bed, the one with low hydrostatic pressure, that's the peritubular capillaries. So blood is coming in here through the afferent arteriole, going through the glomerulus capillary bed, and then leaving through the efferent arteriole. And we're going to have high hydrostatic pressure inside of this blood vessel and osmotic pressure, but the hydrostatic pressure is so high that it is going to win, and that is going to make water come springing out of all the little holes in this capillary bed, and you're going to get a lot of water and the stuff that dissolves in water, like urea, like sodium, like glucose, like amino acids. All of that's going to end up out here in the fluid that gets called filtrate, that gets caught by the parietal layer of the glomerular capsule. Now, there are two things that the kidney has done to make this capillary bed a little bit different from a typical capillary bed. One thing is it has made this glomerulus so it's a little bit leakier than a typical capillary bed. So right there, more water is going to want to leave this capillary bed than leaves a typical capillary bed. Great. The second thing is the blood pressure inside of this capillary bed is higher than in a normal capillary bed, and you need to know why. Why? It's written right over here. The blood pressure in the glomerulus is higher than blood pressure in the rest of the body's capillaries because the diameter of the afferent arteriole is larger than the diameter of the efferent arteriole. That means there's like a big old there's a big old fire hose that's sending water into here, but there's just a little garden hose taking it out. So you know there's going to be a backup, and that backup of pressure makes the blood pressure inside of this glomerulus higher than in a typical capillary bed. So the combination of those two things, the higher blood pressure because of the relative diameters of the afferent and efferent arteriole, plus the fact that this capillary has been designed to leak more, those are the things that are going to make it so that more water is going to leave here than at a typical capillary bed. The third thing that the kidney did was it took the beginning part of the capillary bed and put it here, and then it's going to take the second part and turn it into the peritubular capillaries. Right? The watery stuff that filters out gets called filtrate. Now, I have a tendency to call the fluid that's inside of these things called nephrons, I have a tendency to call it filtrate, but technically it's filtrate while it's here. As soon as it goes into the very beginning of the proximal convoluted tubule, as soon as it goes there, it gets called tubular fluid. Okay? On an exam, I might still call it filtrate. So what is in that? Well, not cells. Cells don't belong in here. This thing, the glomerulus, the structure of the glomerulus, it's kind of like a spaghetti strainer, right? And it'll allow water to go through, and it'll allow the dissolved starch to go through. That comes out here. But all the pasta, it's just going to stay inside, okay? So the cells and the large proteins like albumin and fibrinogen, those things are going to stay in here, and that is actually also going to keep quite a bit of water in here. The blood that leaves the glomerulus, it is kind of concentrated blood, but it won't be that way for very long. Right? So what comes out in this stuff called filtrate? Lots of water And you know what? We're not planning to pee out most of that water, okay? There is water there now, but most of that is going to get put back in your closet. Remember, the closet's your bloodstream? So at this step, we had all the messy clothes in the closet, and now all of the messy clothes is coming out. What's staying behind? Oh, the the clothes rods and the hangers and stuff like that. Those are staying behind. And then the rest of this stuff, we need to sort through it. We need to look at that filtrate and go, okay, I'm keeping this, that I'm going to just let go out in the pee. I'm keeping this, that I'm going to let go out in the pee. So what's in the filtrate? Water. Most of that we're putting back in the bloodstream. Not right now, but soon. Glucose, all of that we want to put back in the bloodstream. Amino acids, all of them we want to put back in the bloodstream. Salts, yeah, a lot of it we want to put back in the bloodstream. Urea, we're okay with letting the urea go away because remember, urea, one of our nitrogenous waste. Alrighty, so as a reminder, here is our typical capillary bed. At the beginning of the capillary bed, there's the hydrostatic pressure forcing fluid out is stronger than the osmotic pressure pulling it in. So at the beginning, we get net filtration, meaning there is water leaving the bloodstream at the beginning of the capillary bed. It goes splashing across all of the cells that are living in this white space. And then at the end of the capillary bed, it's going to jump back on board because blood pressure inside will have fallen by this point, but the osmotic pressure is still very high. That's a reminder of every other capillary bed almost in the body, and that was from the cardiovascular system. Here's how the kidneys have just tweaked it a little bit. They've got the beginning part here in the glomerulus. They've got the end part here at the peritubular capillaries. At the beginning in the glomerulus, hydrostatic pressure is very high. Osmotic pressure is good, but not good enough. And so lots of water and the stuff dissolved in water is going to leave. Except for this time, the kidney was like, I'm not just letting it splash across cells. No, I'm going to capture it in the glomerulus and send it down the tubes of this structure called the nephron. So now we're tubular fluid. And now the blood has gone in the efferent arteriole. And here, the tubular fluid, this is going to be the distal convoluted tubule, the proximal convoluted tubule, technically the nephron loop, but we'll get to that, all right? So now we've got tubular fluid, and the peritubular capillaries are right next to them. And here, the blood pressure inside of this is very low, but the osmotic pressure is actually higher than it was back then. So water wants to go back because osmotic force is much stronger. The osmotic force inside of the capillary is much stronger than hydrostatic force, so water goes back in. Now, if you're like me, and assuming you've been following this, then you're thinking to yourself, a lot of water just left here, and as soon as we get to the proximal convoluted tubule, 2/3 of it go right back. That was stupid, right? I know that's what I thought. Anyway, you probably are smarter than me, but the thing is that the water that left through little tiny holes. So the water that left was dirty water. Whereas the water that goes back by osmosis, it has to go through a different kind of a filtration membrane. And since it has to go through a different filter, the water that goes back clean. Or you could look at it this way. You take all of the clothes out of your mom's closet. A lot of that needs to be thrown away, but 2/3 of it goes right back in, right? The stuff that gets left behind needs to get sorted through. We're going to pick up there at the beginning of our next video.